This video is sponsored by our friends at Kamikoto. Kamikoto taps into more than 800 years of traditional techniques from Japan to craft incredibly sharp, single bevel knives. These beautiful knives are made from the finest Japanese steel, and they've elevated my cooking game significantly. Each knife comes in a beautiful, heavy-duty ashwood box. They also make for an incredible gift. Each Kamikoto knife goes through a rigorous 19-step process that takes several years from start to finish to complete. Each knife is individually inspected, and Kamikoto is so confident about their knives that each one comes with a lifetime guarantee. These knives are incredible, and you don't have to take my word for it. They have been used by Michelin star chefs all over the world, and if you don't love them, you will get a full refund. Right now, Kamikoto is having their biggest sale of the year. Go to kamikoto.com/Chael. That's going to save $50 off your entire purchase price, or just click the link below. Use the promo code Chael and you will save $50 today. All right, guys, I did a piece the other day, and it had nothing to do with the piece, and I took a shot at Bruce Lee. I was talking about the philosophies of Bruce Lee, and I was complimenting them, that they held up, that Bruce's philosophy turned out to be true, even though his ability to fight sucked. I got a response, and we got to do this about once a year, but I got a response. I'm in a conversation with Tone. It's on Twitter. And his name is Tone, T-O-N-E. Some people spell Tony, like their parents misspelled Tony, and they put the word Tone. So it could be Tony, and I'm not trying to be condescending. I just want to acknowledge him, because he's been quite a gentleman. He really is. We're going back and forth, and he's been quite a gentleman. So here's what he publicly said. He's saying this to me, Chael Sonnen. Chael Sonnen said Bruce Lee is garbage. He couldn't fight a lick. The amount of BJJ or wrestlers that I've seen walk into a dojo and get bodied to a throat punch or a knee to the groin to set up a hook. Huge difference between sports fighting and Vale Tudo. And then he says, GG, I don't know what that means. Now, not giving Tony a hard time. Been writing Tony back and forth. But, gentlemen, I'm just using this as a jumping off point. He put this out publicly. I didn't share a private DM, so I think that we're okay here. Whenever I talk about Bruce Lee, I feel a need. I have an urge that's stronger than my ability to be polite, to make sure that I include that he couldn't fight. Now, that's a very personal thing. That's a very personal thing when somebody who did not fight, who does not deserve the credit, who was not a champion, who did not risk it, when somebody that did none of those things can come over the top of the hardworking men and women that do all of those things. Some of them never to a top 10 level. Some of them never to a major promotion. Most of them never to the top of a card, world title opportunity, or the world title. But they would all beat up Bruce Lee really fast, really easy, and really, really fast. I just have this urge. I just have that. There's a very strong compulsion for me to make sure to give him his due for his philosophy, which was only one thing. I'll make it sound real simple to you guys now, but back in the late 60s was unheard of, which is go ahead and train multiple arts. Train karate and taekwondo if you would like to. Mix a little judo in there if you have the chance. And if you ever find yourself in an actual unarmed situation, draw from anything you need to win that situation. I know that sounds simple to you now, but it didn't used to work that way. There was nobody in the world, not an American phenomenon, in the world, that practiced karate but would also pop over to the Aikido studio. Nobody did Aikido, and they also taught workouts over at Kung Fu. You picked one. And Bruce was right, and I give him that due. I always have to have somebody come in, though, and tell me what a great fighter Bruce would be. And the real tactics, right? I remember the first time I had this, working with a guy named James. I liked James. I was a bouncer, doorman in college. Very fun job down in Eugene. Check people's IDs. Get to go out, get to be part of stuff. I really enjoyed that job. And I had this guy named James. He was a clean-cut guy. He was a good-looking guy. He comes in, he wants to get hired. He had pretty good size to him, a little bit scrawny looking. But he could do the job. And he goes a little bit further with it. And he says that as a matter of fact, he's trained. He trains in martial arts. and that he hasn't been in there much. He studied them and he likes them, but he's got a kung fu gym he's going to go to, and there's an 83-year-old woman in there. And the 83-year-old woman can beat any man in there. Telling me that. She's got these secret techniques. The 83-year-old can beat anyone in there. Somebody told him that. He believed it enough to come in and tell it to me. But moreover, he thought that was cool. He thought that was cool that he was going to go to a gym where he could get thrown around by an 83-year-old woman. That's a real phenomenon that exists within people. You meet guys in the military, they got their thumb. I can kill you 7 different ways with a thumb. Have you heard like this? This is a really believed thing. James thought there was secret techniques that you could do, and the frustration between competitive guys and the traditional martial arts really comes down to work ethic. If you're in a dojo, if you're in a gym, if you're in a practice room, if you're trying to learn combat, and from the moment you walk in to 2 hours later when you walk out, you are not completely exhausted and dripping in sweat. That's just the test right there. Let me stop you right there. I don't need to hear what your coaches did and your teammates. And you go and do the practice, and when it's over, you are not dripping in sweat. You must have a shower. You have no choice. You must have a change of clothes because you're that soaking wet. If that isn't true, you're not doing anything that can be respected. That is the real answer. And the dojos will stay open, and they'll stay open with wimps. And the reason they bring in the wimps is because they convince them of one thing. And then moreover, they don't work them hard. It's very hard to get people to come to the wrestling room because it's tough. I'd rather go play basketball. That's fun. That's easy. And so the martial arts gyms that do this, they convince people that they have secret techniques, for one, that are too vicious to do. You won't even see these in fighting. These are too dangerous. And then I've got to hear this from Tone right now. Now, he believes it. He's not being a jerk. He really believes it. He believes, and this is what he said. He said, if you knew how many BJJ guys or wrestlers walked into a dojo and succumbed to a throat punch or a groin shot, I mean, I've got to at every part of that. You've never seen a wrestler or a BJJ guy that's meaningful, right? I'm talking about something that actually does it, not just says I was a fan. Walk into a dojo. I mean, let me stop you right there. You have never seen that, Tony. They would never go into a dojo. And it's not because they're unwilling to learn the secret. They're way above the dojo. That you haven't seen that. So I know that you're not being literal, you're being figurative. But even figuratively, in your twisted mind, how many I've seen come in there and they get beat by a groin shot or a throat punch. Why would you practice something that does that? Why would you practice something that attacks somebody's throat or kicks them in the groin? Why? What gym is doing that? Every story I hear about inappropriate contact and some coach that's shut down and is doing years in the state pen has something to do with that groin attack you're talking about. Like, why are you even bringing that up? What coach anywhere told you to attack the guy's throat or kick him in the nuts? And not for nothing, this has nothing to do with my argument. You can punch me in the throat right now and kick me in the groin. I am going to beat the you-know-what out of you. Like, it is going to do nothing. But why would you bring that up? Why would you act as though you watched wrestlers and BJJ guys walk into a dojo? Why, when they came into the dojo, would it come up what their background was? When it comes out what their background is, why is somebody attacking them in a throat? Why are they touching their groin in any fashion? Why would they do that? It's not true. You made it up. You made it up to prove a point. Now, I do get that. I fully understand that you're moreover trying to prove a point of these techniques that aren't allowed in MMA. And you could play that like, yeah, we don't allow groin shot. They could really hurt a guy. We don't allow you to hit in the jugular. Like, that could really hurt a guy. We can keep playing that game. You grab a guy's hair, like, right, you poke him in the eye. You take a brick and you smash him in the face. I mean, that game will never end. But the phenomenon that you've got some street fighter that could handle... Okay. There's a tough guy out in New York. He's a tough guy. I like him. And, but there's an MMA judges MMA, that was telling me, you better, this is the guy that you don't mess with. And then he'd even talked about training MMA fight. This is a judge. He judges. He's supposed to be an expert, but he did believe, hey, man, don't bring it over here. That's street fight, man. He'll grab a pool cue. He'll hit you with a glass. I mean, you just always hear these weird things. It's like, okay, you see the pool cues? Okay. When we say go, you're free to grab one. I won't, but you can. You will never get that pool cue. I mean, what do you think when you're dealing with? You think a quick draw is still a real thing? What do you need the pool cue for? This doesn't work. You're not going to put this on me. You think I'm going to let you put that? Let's do one more. Let's not you get the pool cue once they say go. Let's start it and you have the pool cue. You're not going to kick me. You're not going to touch. You're not going to elbow me. You think that big long stick, I'm not going to get out of the way of that? You have to hear some of these silly things. I mean, every so often you have to hear that. And any of these legends that you hear about, Steven Seagal would be guilty of it as well. Chuck Norris made his comeuppance. Now, Chuck actually had a competitive background and doesn't quite deserve to be part of this, but he did make his comeuppance for the same reason. Judo Gene LaBelle, Bruce Lee, I mean, all of these guys, if you trace them back, have one thing in common, and it wasn't championships, it wasn't entering the Kumite. It wasn't that they were born 100 years before the octagon was set up and they never got their opportunity. It wasn't that they sidestepped the Olympics or the NCAA or any other respected form of work. It wasn't that they got some great fight prior to anybody capturing it on video, but somebody once. It's none of those things. You trace them all back to Los Angeles, California. That is where all stories are told. Those people go in and write scripts and they sell them. They get in front of cameras and they make TV and they put it out to the world. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a fake at all. There is something wrong with claiming that a wrestler walked into a dojo. There's something moreover wrong with claiming that after the wrestler walks into the dojo where nobody is sweating, there's no locker room and shower situation. Have you ever realized that? You ever been to a dojo where they got a locker room and a shower? The answer is no. Do you want to know why? Because you don't need a shower when you're done. Do you want to know why you don't need a shower when you're done? Because you don't sweat. Do you want to know why you don't sweat? Because you're not doing anything hard. And they didn't succumb to a groin shot. If they did, if somebody purposefully and meaningfully grab that person or touch that person in their groin, you need to call 911.